A minority in Africa in historical times. We tend to think now of Africa as being a country of black people, a continent full of black people. It's not true.
It is very fun. I'm going to show you this video. A so-called white person in South Africa saying that saying that Africa is not for black people. Africa was for so-called white people. And then these people can misinform. Oh, these people can misinform, you know. These people, it's so funny if you watch the video. And then you see, and you know, these people are masters of propaganda, because they can turn something, they can turn black to white and turn white to black. First of all, you are calling yourself white. You are not white. I have traveled a bit. I have never come across a white person in my life. I keep saying it. How did they manage to convince the rest of the world that they are white people? This is how white look like. White paper. This is how, have you ever seen a human being look like this? So when the Europeans are calling themselves white, and then we have people who are educating us and telling us that until the 17th century civil war in Haiti, there was nothing like a white person on this planet Earth. But you see how propaganda can do? They have been able to force it on us to believe that they are white people. And then today we accept it. Continue repeating it as, what's his name? Hitler was saying. Continue, even if it is a lie. Even if it is a lie, just continue repeating it. Just continue saying we are white people, we are white. And the rest of the world will buy it. They will buy into it. Because as I said, that is the reason why I'm holding this white paper. Have you ever seen a human being look like this? But yes, they are white race. They are white. And today, this guy, the video I'm going to show you, he's telling us that Africa wasn't for white people, for black people, that South Africa, you see, that South Africa was for white people. And then Southern Africa, the entire Southern Africa was occupied by the Bush people, who he claimed they were white. He doesn't even know that we as black people, we are the only people who can give birth to everybody. He doesn't know that not only in Southern Africa, East Africa, if you go to East Africa, there are some people we call albino. I grew up with a friend, a very good friend of mine. He was whiter than anybody, so-called. He was paler than any human being in Europe. He was paler than any human being. He was albino. His mom and dad, deep dark black. But him. So that is where you people came from. We give birth to you. And today he's saying that Southern Africa and even Kenya and the rest, that Bantu Africans came from West Africa and conquered South Africa. So in Southern Africa, it was white people who occupied there. This is somebody coming from South Africa. South Africa has a lot to do. Honestly, if our brothers and sisters in South Africa does not stop attacking their soul, because I saw a video that some group of operation, whatever they call themselves, that they are against immigrants from other African countries. If you don't focus on the realities facing you, these people, as they have history of doing that. Look at what is happening in Palestine. Look at what is happening in Palestine. Today they are telling you that Southern Africa, the whole of Southern Africa, and even some part of East Africa, that it wasn't black people occupied. That the only place in Africa that black people were in West Africa. So black people have to come all the way from West Africa. Bantu Africans have to come all the way from West Africa to enslave white people in Southern Africa. That's why some of them ran away. So South Africa belongs to white people, according to this man. We don't tire. But anyway, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's funny.
A minority in Africa in historical times. We tend to think now of Africa as being a country of black people, a continent full of black people. It's not true. At one time, there were three different types of people living in Africa. There were the Berbers, who lived in the Sahara before it became a desert. They were white people, and they lived in North Africa. In the south, there were the Khoisan, sometimes known as the bush people. Yeah. They lived over most of Africa, right as far north as Uganda, Kenya, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa. There weren't any black people living there. There were only the Khoisan people living there.
So were they white, these Bushmen?
They were white people. They were white people, and they had an Oriental appearance, had epicanthic eye folds. They looked Asian. Oh. These were the original humans. These were the first Homo sapiens that came into Europe. They're still living on reservations in places like Botswana. About 2,500 years ago, a group of black people called the Bantu, who were living in West Africa, started to expand outward. They started farming, and they began to expand outward into the rest of Africa. And they conquered or exterminated everyone that came into their path, or enslaved them, if there were any survivors. So they enslaved the Pygmies. They killed all the Khoisan, except for a few of them that they used as slaves. And it was the Bantu that conquered Africa. That's why we think of Africa as being a nation where black people live.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The Bantu spread out through Africa, and by the 16th or 17th century, they were approaching South Africa. Now, sometimes people think that South Africa is a black nation, that it belonged to black people. It's not true. The black people, the Bantu, hadn't reached there when the white people arrived in the 17th century. At that time, the Khoisan, the bush people, were living there, who were white people, indigenous Africans. And so the Bantu and the white settlers both exterminated the Khoisan and drove them out. But South Africa was never a black nation, not until the 16th, 17th century.
What?
It's easy enough to read up on the history of the people.
Khoisan, I'm just looking here. Khoisan, according to contemporary orthography, Khoisan is a catch-all term for the non-Bantu indigenous peoples of Southern Africa.
That's right. The fact that it says indigenous means that they lived there. Yeah. They are the inhabitants of South Africa.
They look black. They are black, though.
They look black because there's been a lot of interbreeding.
Oh,
but if you Google Khoi people and go through images, you'll find some of them are very pale skinned, the original ones.
That is fascinating because they're even starting to. They talk about the Cheddar Man being everyone comes from black people. Have you seen that? It's been debunked since, but yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah, I did.
Can you give us a breakdown of Cheddar Man?
Again, it's easy enough to find out. Yeah, there was a big fuss made because they produced a bust and a reproduction of what was supposed to have been the first Black Britain, and they claimed that it was black people that first came here. So you had this reproduction of a black person with blue eyes and long black hair, and everyone said, oh wow, fancy that, black people have lived here all along. It's not true at all. It's not possible to say what colour the skin was. It was possible to say that the eyes were blue. You can get that genetically.